Oh, hello, hello. I hope you're all doing okay. Hello, hello, hello. This is Warren Redlick. Hope we're doing all right with the video. Let's just get started. We are uh, happy to report that we have named the new Tesla Model Y. Our new Tesla Model Y is named outside the simulation. For those who aren't familiar with that, Elon was on Lex Friedman's podcast some time ago, and Lex Friedman asked him, "What would you ask?" Basically, if you had a chance to talk to God or something like that, Supreme Being, what would you ask? And Elon thought, he thought, and he thought, and then he said, "What's outside the simulation?" was his question, as if we're living in a simulation. Oh, is it Happy Father's Day? I have no idea. I didn't even know it was Father's Day. That's hilarious. So I just thought I'd start with that. I think that's fun stuff. But here's some fun. Here's some more fun for you. This is Thailand. This is why we need Cybertruck in Thailand. We're going to talk about Cybertruck next. But you can see the pickup trucks in Thailand, they need a little help. So let's get them a little help and let's see what we can do about that. So um, I wanted to use that as a lead in to talk about Cybertruck. This is something, maybe this is beating a dead horse, but I keep seeing people on X complaining that Cybertruck doesn't have enough range, that they were expecting a 500-mile range Cybertruck. And Elon did say back in 2019 or whatever that the tri-motor Cybertruck would be, Happy Father's Day, everybody. The tri-motor Cybertruck would be 500 miles of range, and they didn't deliver that. It's true. And the practical reality is that there's a very small share of the market that needs 500 miles of range. It's people who are towing long distances, people who are towing uphill, people who are driving in very cold winters. It's about 5% of the truck buying market. Think about, how often do you drive? How often do you drive more than 200 miles in a day? Right. So if you have very, very cold weather and you have other issues, then okay, 200 miles range, 350 miles range or whatever might not be enough for you. Okay. They did, and people keep forgetting this. The all-wheel drive Cybertruck over-delivered on range, right? And you got all-wheel steering, you got steer-by-wire, the rear-wheel steering. There's a lot that came with Cybertruck that wasn't expected to be included. So, but this obsession that I see so many people have, and Gregor Truck is one of them. My buddy Jay is hauling his boat from Lake Powell to today from Mesa. That's 295 miles. How many of you tow a boat 295 miles on anywhere near a regular basis? It's not a common thing. You're trying to make Cybertruck affordable for the vast majority of the market. If they had designed Cybertruck to enable a 500-mile range Cybertruck, right? They would have had it re-engineer everything. Everything would have been engineered differently, and the cost of Cybertruck, any version of Cybertruck, would have been higher, which would have made it less affordable, which means less people would have bought it. And if you think, people are like, oh, people aren't buying Cybertruck because they didn't meet the range requirement. They didn't meet the range they promised. No, the all-wheel drive version of Cybertruck was the one that was supposed to be higher volume, and they exceeded the range that they said in 2019 for the all-wheel drive Cybertruck. Cyber Beast Tri-Motor was like the one for people who have way too much money. And he was talking about the range extender needs more range, and they shouldn't have canceled the range extender. Well, why do you think they canceled the range extender? They canceled the range extender because no one ordered it. They had like 3 orders. Who knows? Maybe 15. They needed thousands of orders to justify the engineering work to make range extender work. The demand wasn't there. Hi, B. It's just people don't want to wrap their heads around this. What does Elon say over and over again in response to things like this? They have to make vehicles more affordable. They are working on making vehicles more affordable. I'm going to talk about 4680 a little bit later, or towards the end of this live stream. Getting 4680 working, that's going to help. There's things that they can do to help, but making niche vehicles for niche people is not the answer. And I'm sorry that people don't believe that, but that's reality. So, just wanted to hit on Whine. This is people whining about Cybertruck. Cybertruck's a great vehicle, but oh, and the people say, well, they had all these reservations. Why didn't people buy it? Because it was too expensive. They weren't able to make it at the low cost that they thought they would be able to deliver. And there's a whole bunch of factors that went into that. 4680 didn't get where they needed it to be. The engineering turned out to be harder. The supply chain turned out to be harder. A whole bunch of things got in the way, and they just haven't been able to get the cost down enough to really get volumes up. And people who reserved thinking they were paying $50,000 for a truck weren't ready to pay 80. Who can figure that? Come on. So that's the reality. So it's important to deliver vehicles that are affordable rather than deliver vehicles that are niche. I think that's very straightforward. But I did want to say, for people who want who want to be able to tow with their truck, well, buy a semi. I don't know why Grok did this. Grok made semi with Falcon Wing door. I didn't ask it to make semi with Falcon Wing doors, but it did. I asked it to make semi next to a Model X with the Falcon Wing doors up, and somehow it made semi with Falcon Wing doors up. I think it's hilarious. But semi, Tesla semi, buy it if you really want to tow 300 miles, 400 miles, whatever, towing a boat. Well, semi's made to do that. But I wanted it, and I'm doing that, half-hearted, partly for fun. But it leads into something. I might make a full video on this topic of what's the future for semi, and what's the cost. This is a big question when you're into Tesla stuff. What's the cost? Because you want semi to be affordable. Some people want to buy semi for themselves and make an RV or have their own truck. Okay, so I think when they initially talked about semi, I think we were hoping of like a $250,000 price point or maybe a $200,000 price point. I don't think that's realistic. I'm going to lay out why. So number one, I think we have a 900 kilowatt hour battery pack. Maybe it's 800, but I think it's 900 kilowatt hour battery pack. When you add it all up, the battery pack, the cells, if you have 4680 cells, which is hitting that point, they said that 4680 is now the lowest cost cell available for EVs in the US market, North American market. Okay, so that's probably around $100 a kilowatt hour, and then you've got pack costs. So figure $100,000 and $110,000 for the pack, and if you work out the numbers, worked with Grok to sort of figure out, okay, the Model X manufacturing cost without the pack might be $70,000. It's probably $60,000. If you realize that semi is about 4 times the mass, the leaving the battery pack out, the rest of semi is about 4 times the mass of Model X. Well, 4 times the mass, you'd expect 4 times the cost, right? So 70,000, 280,000, maybe 60,000, 240,000. Maybe you can squeeze a little more out of it, but you end up with around a $200,000 to $250,000 manufacturing cost for the rest of the truck, plus $100,000 for the battery pack. So you're at least $300,000 in cost. So they're not selling semi for $250,000. But if you really want to tow your boat from Mesa to Lake Powell or whatever the hell the lake was, then buy a semi. But, it's going to cost you. And, I'm sorry, but that's just the cold hard reality is the EVs aren't there yet. And the goal is to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, not accelerate your boat trip to Lake Powell. Elon's friend of the week, Warren. Am I Elon's friend of the week? He did reply to me a few times. So I think there's an interesting topic here. What's really the cost of semi going to be? Let me know if you think that might be a good video in the chat or in the comments. I think, what are the prospective costs of manufacturing? I think people had hoped they were going to deliver semi for $250,000. I just don't think that's reasonable because the battery cost alone, we're probably looking at $100,000 for battery and pack. And then you've got basically the plaid powertrain, but it's beefed up. And then you've got to have a heavier duty suspension. You've got a lot more mass. And then you don't have like volume production where you're making $1 million a year. They're planning on making 50,000 a year. So you're not going to get to the same volume. So it's just, when they get semi at full volume in, say, the end of 2026, maybe they're going to get their costs down. But it's still going to be $300,000 or so to manufacture a semi, and they sell it for $350,000, and they don't make that much profit, but they're accelerating the transition to sustainable energy, and that's what we want. 20% margin, $300,000, maybe $360,000 for semi. It's going to save people who run semis a ton of money on energy cost and maintenance cost and all these other things, and the drivers love driving them. So there's prospects, but we're just not getting manufacturing costs down that low. But let me know if you think that's worth making a full video about, because I think there's something there, and I think that's the kind of thing. I don't think anybody else has made that video yet. I like to make a video that covers something that other people haven't really discussed yet. Farzad's making videos, Stephen Mark Ryan's making videos, Limiting Factor's making videos. Is there some value I can add somewhere? And I think this might, maybe there's some value in this. Elon reposted my video. Yes, he did. What video was that? I don't remember what video that was. I'm so caught up in life. I'm having such a great time. Okay, this I thought was an important news detail. Waymo did a blog post talking about their study, and they determined that, similar to language modeling, increased data and compute resources can enhance the performance of autonomous vehicles. I think Karpathy said this. Like, Andrei Karpathy was the head of Tesla's, or one of the heads of Tesla's AI team. Lee left the company a couple years ago, but he was saying more data, more compute, more data, more compute. Everybody has known that. Waymo just figured it out now. More data, more compute. And this confirms, who has the most data. Tesla has millions of cars running, generating data. Who has the most compute? Tesla has these massive compute clusters. I think Waymo might have significant compute, but how much compute time is Google giving Waymo versus how much compute time is Tesla getting? And who's really got the right compute? And Tesla has the right inference compute in the cars. They have the right model. By the way, Alex, Elon reposted my video. He replied to a few posts. What people don't see, he liked a couple of posts too. Yes, I'm very happy. I feel very good when Elon responds to stuff. I'm guessing the algorithm served him some of my content recently, so that's cool. But I just think this is one of those things where, hello, more data, more compute. Who's got more data? Who's got more compute? Tesla has insane amounts of data. Thank you, Sean. So, Sean, I want to just touch on this point because this is something that I take very seriously. Sean says you always bring value to the Tesla community. I'll be blunt. Like, if you go back 4 years, 4 years, there weren't that many voices covering what's happening with Tesla. It was, Dave Lee and Rob Maurer from Tesla Daily, and I think I was before Stephen Mark Ryan, Gali from Hyperchange. Now there are 5-10 channels. I don't think there were that many, and it's not. I don't have anything negative to say about the ones I just mentioned. They're all good at the time. I think I think a couple of them are quiet now. But I felt like I had something to say that they weren't saying. And the thing is, now there's so many people making Tesla content. And frankly, Stephen Mark Ryan, just to be clear, I love Stephen Mark Ryan. Like, do I have something to say that he hasn't already said? That's the kind of the point about this live stream, is get some reaction from people in the chat. And I'm just sort of summarizing I don't think Stephen makes this kind of video. But if I make a content video about, how's Tesla's Robotaxi going to be valued, or, Stephen and I agree on everything. I feel like anytime if I ever see Stephen say anything, it's like, yep. And we have the same information sources mostly. So, and he's better looking and he's funnier and he's younger. So, it takes out the win from like, why am I making these videos? Farzad covers a lot. Cern Basher is fantastic. His models are like, I think it's hard to distinguish his models and Steven's models from my models. We're all basically saying this, and ARK Invest, right? We're all saying basically the same thing when it comes to what's the stock going to be worth in 2028 or something like that. We all have roughly the same idea of what Robotaxi is going to be worth, what Optimus is going to be worth. So that perspective that I was offering doesn't feel like I'm adding anything new anymore. So you switch, and like, I'm trying to find, like, what do I have to say that somebody else isn't already saying? And that's why I mentioned, like, doing a video about Semi. I don't think somebody's made that video yet. So is that a video you'd want to see? Let me know. Won't the mass production Semi greatly increase the need for Mega Pack? I don't think so. It'll increase it some, but the demand for Mega Pack is off the charts anyway. Nobody's training Waymos to drive. I don't know the answer to the training. There's no human feedback, maybe. I'm not sure how they're training Waymo. So it's a good point. Is there something about how Waymo trains their cars that we're not thinking? Because the thing is, the cars drive, you train them on, the cars make predictions about what's going to happen, and then you see what actually happens. So you train on where your predictions at. This is from James Down. I interviewed James Down a while ago. He's talked to Dave Lee a bunch of times. The cars are making all kinds of predictions. So you're tracking all kinds of data about what are the cars predicting is going to happen. If something happens different from what the car predicted, then you train on the mistake. You say, okay, what really happened? Okay, let's retrain on the new data that we've got. So if Tesla allowed foreigners to buy property fully, house prices would rise to significant interest worldwide. Probably, yeah. I don't know how that came up though. So, all right. So I just think this is, funny with Waymo. All right, let's move on. I want to change topics a little bit really quick because this is another thing that gets me excited. I see a bunch of people talking about artificial general intelligence, artificial superintelligence. I don't get how it's going to create new jobs. We're going to need universal basic income. Or one guy was like, Well, it's not really universal basic income because money won't matter because there will be superabundance. Like, okay. And I want to emphasize, I've said this before, but I just want to hit on this point. When ATMs came along, they told us that bank teller jobs would be destroyed, and bank teller jobs doubled. What happened was ATMs made banks more efficient. They were able to deliver customer service more efficiently. It made it so much more efficient that banks were able to open additional branches. And they were able to train their bank tellers to do higher value work. So they actually doubled the number of branches, then they doubled the number of bank tellers. Eventually, online computing came in and bank teller jobs declined, but then there's jobs in online banking. And if I'm old, if you go back to 1990, right? If you were sitting there in 1990, would you have predicted search engine optimization, social media marketing? Would you have predicted that Warren would be a content creator? I mean, look, I started making videos for money in, I don't know, 2019 or something like that. Is it that long? If you had said to me in 2015, Warren, you'll be a content creator on YouTube and Elon Musk is going to follow you on X, I would have said, what's X? I wouldn't have believed you. And 4 years later, that's what I started doing. So we can't predict the jobs of the future. We never have been able to predict the jobs of the future. Technology creates jobs we don't foresee. Thank you, Gavin. I think I'm getting healthier, and I'm definitely getting healthier. Yeah, just on a personal note, I'm sorry I'm going to hit this point a little bit. I do a ton of cardio, and I do a lot of strength training. And I really believe in this now. The high intensity interval training, I do a version called REHIT, which is reduced exertion, high intensity training. It's like 30 seconds all out, like, oh my God, I want to die. And then easy for 2 minutes and do the same thing. In my case, 3 times. It's supposed to be 20 seconds twice. I do 30 seconds 3 times. I literally max out the bike. And my resting heart rate is now below 50. So things are going well. I still have wrinkles on my forehead. Still a little heavier than I want to be. I am losing a little bit of weight, I think. Elon should make you the Tesla rep in Thailand or something. I have some, Darren Jung and I have some. Darren Jung is a YouTuber who covers Southeast Asia for a long time. We have issues with how Tesla sells cars in Thailand. I had to fly to Bangkok. My wife and I had to fly to Bangkok to pick up the car and drive it 800 kilometers, 500 miles back to Krabi where we live, because there's only one sales center in Thailand. Chiang Mai is 500 miles north. Phuket and Krabi are 500 miles south. Hat Yai is even further south. There's no sales center in southern Thailand. There's no sales center in the second largest city, Chiang Mai. I don't know. I think Tesla made the decision that it doesn't make sense to the capex of investing to open additional sales centers in these other places would not pay off because they'll be switching to Robotaxi in a few years. That's my best guess. When will semis start being made in China? I agree with that. I think that's something I want to see. I want to see Powerwalls made in China. If I can just hit on that point, I'm looking at we're starting a lease on a new house here in Thailand. In end of next month, basically. Well, middle of next month we move in, end of next month, and after that, I'm hoping we either buy a house or build a house, in my wife's name, and I want to do like a flat or flattish roof or slightly sloped roof and put solar panels on it. And I would love to do a Tesla solar Powerwall system, but Powerwall is outrageously expensive in Thailand. It's like $25,000, where it's like 13,000 before discounts in America, because there's a massive tariff. And the Chinese batteries don't get tariffs, so you want to buy batteries from China. Well, why aren't we making Powerwall in China? I'm scratching my head trying to figure out why they don't make Powerwall in China. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but I don't understand it. No, I don't need a job. That is true. No, I think my wife's uncle asked me what I do, and I'm like, do? I'm retired. But the funny thing is, I don't make a lot of money by American standards, making videos on YouTube and crap posting on X, but I make more than most Thai people. I make like $2,000 a month, let's say. That's good money in Thailand. Um, so 2 million run rate Cybercab next year. I don't think we'll hit 2 million per year by the end of next year. I think you'll see Cybercab production 2 million sometime in 2027. Yeah, so you figure by 2028 the Robotaxi network is up and running at full steam, and every vehicle Tesla makes gets shipped to the United States or China or whatever other countries have legalized Robotaxi, and you only put them in relatively high income markets, because you wouldn't put them in Thailand because human drivers are cheap in Thailand and Vietnam and Malaysia. No, it's not that there's cheap Powerwall copies. BYD has a battery backup device. CATL has a battery. There's like a ton of legit. They're not. Don't pretend that China just copies. China has fantastic engineering. They have the best battery technology in the world. They're fantastic and they're great at manufacturing. I'm not too good on their accounting, apparently. Maybe we'll talk about BYD in a minute. There's a lot. I didn't do a screenshot of this, but there's some issues. There's some people saying, I'm not saying this. There's some people saying that BYD has 10 times as much debt as they admit, and that their suppliers and some of their dealerships are on the edge of bankruptcy. I don't know. I mean, they're selling like hotcakes here in Thailand, and I think they look really good. They're not as good as Tesla's, but I think they're doing a really good job here. So, yeah, just wanted to like, and then this question of when AI or AGI comes along, like if you use Grok or ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or Gemini, I have conversations with these AIs all the time, almost always Grok, but sometimes a couple others. I can show Grok an image of I've done this, an image of a EKG, the tracings from a heart test, and it can tell me what it thinks, and it'll whether it thinks, like I'll have like an actual report, and then I'll ask Grok what its opinion is, and it's pretty much the same as the doctor, as the cardiologist said. Right? How many friends do you have who can do that? And then I can ask it a question about the Argentinian beef industry, or I can ask it to explain some Thai phrases to me, or how would I say this? And like, there's no human on earth who can answer the variety of questions that I have. And Grok and ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude, all these AIs can do all of that, even DeepSeek. So can I comment on how pervasive slave labor is in China? I don't think slave labor is common in China. Slave labor is common in the Middle East, in Arab countries. It's not common in China. I don't say it's not at all. I just don't think it's very common. I think it's borderline slave labor in India from what I saw, the caste system. But what do you mean by slave labor? That's such a loaded question. Grok told me I should have less Tesla stock. Well, that's the standard view, is you shouldn't be overweight in one stock. You should have a diversified portfolio. I diversify my portfolio by having Tesla in multiple accounts. And now I have diversified from just owning stock to owning long calls. Harry Jones says Warren took massive risk to move abroad. He was rewarded with a beautiful, beautiful Thai wife. Well, there was no massive risk. There was no risk in me traveling abroad or moving abroad. Living in Japan, I'd lived in Japan before. I speak Japanese. I came to Thailand. Thailand's a perfectly pleasant place to live, and it's lower cost. It's just I think it was the right thing to do for what I was going for. My new best friend will be Optimus. Google is free if you need to find a website, and Grok is free if you have a question. My Google searches are down like 90%. What are my predictions for Tesla and Tesla stock in 2030? Well, I mean, look, plain and simple, the valuation models for Tesla in 2030 are Robotaxi and Optimus, and those haven't changed. The value's off the charts. 10 million robotaxis making $50,000 a year in gross profit. That's $500 billion a year in gross profit, which is 25x what Tesla made last year or more. And then Optimus is worth more than that, probably 10x. It's the question is, when do retail investors and institutional investors see the curve? Because when they see the curve, they're going to buy ahead of the curve, and the stock should go up. But when? I don't know. I mean, we've seen the first robo-taxis on the road. We're not that far from, I think it's 7 days from the first ride, and it'll probably be a couple of days later. But things are looking really good. When and ARK Invest has made it clear. It's very clear. You're seeing reports about what Waymo's price per mile is. Tesla's robotaxis cost per mile is like 30 cents, and everybody else is like $2 or $3. It's crazy. Mark says my mistake was not moving to the Philippines earlier. I have to get going on that. I don't want to crap on the Philippines. What I've heard from others, including people from the Philippines, is that Philippines has a low quality of life. Thailand has a very high quality of life. And I've heard that from people who've lived in both countries. There's people from the Philippines who live here. I don't know many Thai people who go to the Philippines. Food's better here. I don't know, but I haven't been to the Philippines yet, so don't hold me on that. Um, yeah, advanced calculations on you have to check your. I like to check one LLM with another LLM. All right, but let me move on. So I just wanted to touch on. We have the new Model S and the new Model X. Tesla announced them. I did a full video on this. But I would just want to touch on this. I did a poll. What do you think of the new Tesla Model S and Model X? And this is, I mean, I'm down here. I'm at 41.8%. Like I'm in the yawn. Like I don't see that this. I'm not saying they haven't made improvements. It's just like you squeeze a little bit more range out of Model S. You squeezed a little bit more room into Model X. I'm not saying it's nothing, but and it's not like I wouldn't want the cars. Like I had a Model X Plaid in America and loved it. So a slightly better Model X. I mean, I'm driving a new Model Y now. It's better than a previous Model Y, and it doesn't look that much different. Okay, I get that, but I don't think this is going to move cars. And I think they raised the price $5,000. I don't think this is going to move cars. So I think the poll is roughly with me that I mean more than 50% say it was good or great. So I don't know. Let me just turn this question. I don't like to talk about politics on YouTube, but I'll touch on this. What's my perspective of Elon diving into MAGA politics and the whole Doge debacle? Well, Doge is not a debacle. Doge did great work. I think the Republicans in Congress and President Trump let down what Elon was trying to do. Elon did a great job. I think that regardless of what you think of the success or failure of Doge, Kamala Harris would have been terrible for America and terrible for. Look, you know, if you want Elon's companies to succeed, if you want Tesla to succeed, you don't want Elon arrested. Kamala wanted to arrest Elon. If you don't believe that, you don't believe that. I don't think there's any question about that. I've seen the videos of they ran some FSD and it didn't stop for a school bus. I think they've solved that problem, and I don't know how they gamed the system, and I don't really care. I don't think this is an issue I'm worried about. Yeah, Doge found a lot of stuff. There's a lot of. Here's my take on this, though. Really, though, I think Elon decided he had to get involved in politics because politics came after Elon, and if we don't save America from crazy debt and wokeism, then it doesn't matter how successful Elon's companies are. If the country goes bankrupt, Tesla ain't worth much. His companies aren't worth much. We don't accomplish the missions. You've got to save America to get there. I do have a different opinion on that. We're going to talk about later, but you know, roughly that's my thoughts on that. Coming next. If you listen to Elon says, well, the first version of our product usually isn't that great. The second version of the product is usually pretty good, and the third version of the product is going to be amazing. Well, we just saw the first version of Elon Political, and he learned a lot. Doge, you could say Doge failed. They learned a lot about the inside of how the government works and how spending is done and where the money's being wasted and where the fraud is. So even if they weren't able to get the Republicans to do something about it, they figured that out, and they figured out how to succeed in elections because they swung Pennsylvania for Trump, and I think they learned a lot about swinging elections. So maybe in 2026 we see version 2 of Political Elon, and he uses what he's learned to primary some Republicans who were screwing over Americans on spending. And he learns from that experience. And maybe he gets a little more influence over what the government does to get him to do the right things. And then 2028, we see Gen 3 of Elon Political, and that's going to be amazing. That's a theory. Better quality of life in Canada. I hear different things about that. I don't know. People hardly need cars anymore. You can get 2 rear-wheel Ys for an XRS. Y is a great. I'll tell you, this Y is a great car. I'm working on a video on that. I'm going to do I never do this, but I'm going to do a review of driving the Y, and it's in the context of Thailand. So there's something. I'm also working on a series of videos about Thailand. When I say I'm working on it, like I think I'm going to make these videos, but we'll see. I've been shooting some video for the video, so there's like B-roll stuff or whatever, or clips that'll go in the videos. Opsar says I can't find anybody debunking the video. I don't know what video you're talking about. What is Opsar talking about here? Debunking what? Oh, that video. I don't know. We don't know how they gamed the system. We don't know what happens. I don't worry about that. Which city after Austin? I think it would be Los Angeles my best guess is the Bay Area because they've said before that they overfit the Bay Area. The Bay Area being San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley area would make sense. Globalismo Blackman I was just asking as a Brit on the outside looking in. Okay. I just want to know how we're having a No Kings protest in the UK. They're having a no kings protest against Trump in England, which has a king. And there's like 4 other European countries that are having these protests that have kings. They're having a no kings protest in countries that have kings. Okay. Um, will Roadster fly? Possibly. Just drive 23 Model X from Vermont to Washington, D.C. It's incredible. Yeah, okay. So let's move on. So I mentioned this before. I have a theory. So first of all, Mark Andreessen, one of the, I think he's the founder of Mozilla or something like that, and big venture capitalist, Andreessen, Horowitz, or whatever. He says that the world is going to be running on either Chinese AI or American AI, and he wants American AI to be controlling everything. And he made some comments. He thinks, well, Chinese schools teach Marxism. Like, you think American public schools don't teach Marxism? I think the Chinese government is more pro-capitalist than Western governments. There's people who definitely disagree with me on this, but we're seeing really bad stuff out of Western governments. And the one thing I'll say is the Chinese Communist Party, whether you like the name or not, they are clearly more favorable to technology and growth. They are growing energy production like crazy, and Western countries are staying still. If you want to generate AI, data centers, you need energy generation, and China's producing more of that, and the West isn't. America isn't. Europe isn't. How are you going to power your AI data centers if you don't generate more electricity? I'm sure Elon has a plan for that, but the country as a whole doesn't. Yes, I agree. There's problems in China. Basically, I have this theory. This is a very aggressive theory that many of you will not like. That Elon should probably move to China because he cannot count on the United States to be a reliable platform for the missions. And if he went to Xi Jinping and said, "Hey, listen, I won't say anything about your government. I won't say anything about your government. Just let me cook. I'll get you to Mars. I'll get you AI. The AI has to be truth-telling, but it can be quiet about you, right? It has to be a truth-telling AI, but I can get it to not say anything negative about you. It might not say anything positive, but it won't say anything." So that's an extreme view, but I just look at it and say, all right, Trump let us down. The Republicans in Congress let us down. We're not getting spending under control. We're not getting deficits and debt under control. We're not getting interest payments on that debt under control. America's in trouble. And if 2028 comes and Gavin Newsom or Pete Buttigieg or whoever wins the next election, we go back to the age of Biden. We go back to, government gaslighting and, wokeism trying to control everything and capitalism going away. Russia offering Elon Musk asylum. I don't think Russia is the right choice. China would be the right choice, not Russia. Hey, you don't have to lie. Look, it's a theory. I'm not saying, hey, I'm not calling Elon. I could DM Elon on X. Hey, Elon, move to China. Like he gives a crap what I think, right? I'm just saying, the companies would still run, but if Elon decides, hey, I'm going to locate in China, I'm going to make China my base of operations. And, I think right now under Trump, we're going to see SpaceX free to expand. But if a Democrat wins the 2028 election, you really think that's going to be protected? I don't know. I think China would love to support Elon building rockets and launching rockets, and he wouldn't have all the hassles he gets from the FAA. Russia. Why would Russia offer Elon asylum? Why would Elon want it from Russia? Yeah, I mean, look, the practical reality is that more than half of Americans don't appreciate Elon for what he does, and Asians think he's doing pretty good. Is hardware 4 good enough for real FSD? Yes. And are the new models the same, but with bumper? I don't think the front bumper camera is that big of a deal. I don't think they're going to retrofit. I think obviously the AI5 hardware that's coming end of this year, early next year will be better, but I think it's very apparent that the AI4 hardware is good enough. Gives Gavin's a bad name. Yes, Gavin, I agree. All right. So let me move on. You don't have to like me saying that Elon might be better off in China. And I don't mean Elon, the missions, getting to Mars, becoming a spacefaring civilization. How many Americans do you know who are willing to go to Mars versus how many Chinese do you think would be willing to go to Mars? I think it'd be easier to get Chinese to go to Mars than it will be to get Americans to go to Mars. Chinese engineers, Chinese, seems like Musk and Trump have made amends. They made amends, but I don't think Elon's going to forget. And look, it doesn't matter what they made amends. The reality is that Trump and the Republicans are screwing everyone on spending. I still think that Trump is the best president in my lifetime because he's fixed a lot of things, but he's not fixing something that's really important. Nobody else would have either. Was the feud a dog and pony show? I don't think so. All right, let me move on. So just really quick, this is on that point. What's the best way to massively increase reliable energy generation in America? 33% said nuclear, 62% got it and said solar and batteries. Nuclear's great. I want to see more nuclear, but it can't scale like solar can. We need, and this is another thing, America, it's difficult to get the permits to do solar. Is Trump going to fix that? Trump doesn't say a lot of positive things about solar and wind. Are we going to get a more favorable environment? And I think people don't know this. This is my own experience when I was in Florida looking at this, and when I was in tech, when I was looking at potentially buying land in Texas. The utilities have tremendous influence over state policy, and they don't want you or me to produce too much electricity because then we're competing with their energy generation. So in Florida, like if you do more than a 10 kilowatt system on your roof, you have a problem. If you want to do an off-grid system, that might not be allowed. There's some parts of Texas where you can do whatever, but the vast majority of the country, the utilities have too much power. Like there's no private solar. Find a private solar farm. All the private solar farms are owned by utilities. Why aren't there private sector people? Because we have private windmills, but we don't really see private solar farms. Why is that? Because the people who control the utilities control the governments, and they prevent it. Vance will beat the AOC. Bernie. I don't know what. I'm not saying that the Democrats will win in 2028. I'm saying it's a risk. And if they win in 2028, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to get a little political here, but the Democratic Party has not stopped pissing me off. Okay, they are absolutely the worst I've ever seen of any political party in America right now. They're constantly gaslighting, constantly lying, constantly misleading. They're like propaganda to the nth power. It's like Trump derangement syndrome has become like a zombie virus. It's absolutely awful. Putin did say Musk is in the same league as the founder of the Soviet space program. They're not offering him asylum, and he doesn't want it. Elon suddenly gets a lot of support from governments when he mentions going elsewhere. Maybe. How much Tesla electric and Texas power grid? I don't think it's that much yet. I don't think Tesla's that big on the power grid yet. Yeah, China has real plans they are generating. I think China's already generating twice as much electricity as America, and they're on like a steep upward sloping curve, and we're flat. I do think we could see Elon do a third party in 2028, but I don't know. I'm not saying I want to see a lot of nuclear. I'm just saying I don't mind nuclear. It's just it can't scale. Rush idea is dumb. All right, so last thing on my list of things to talk about on my slide deck here is, of course, our friend Barry Glack. He says the Uber bull argument, he's an investor in Uber, he's sold all his Tesla stock, is that as many auto manufacturers are improved for unsupervised autonomy and offer driverless capabilities on Uber's ride-sharing platform, Uber is best positioned to expand its TAM, total addressable market, by offering a much lower priced driverless option. Not over the next month, but over the next 3 to 5 years. Like, as many auto manufacturers are approved for unsupervised autonomy, who? What auto manufacturers are anywhere close to who they don't have the cameras on the cars. They don't have the LiDAR on the cars if you think LiDAR is the solution. They don't have the chips in the cars. They don't have the data centers. What auto manufacturers are going to be developing unsupervised autonomy? Where are they getting this unsupervised autonomy from? It's just like the dumbest, it's the dumbest thing I've seen. And I've seen a lot of dumb. Well, I shouldn't say that. The dumbest thing I've seen is Western liberal protesters going to Egypt to march to Gaza and finding out that the Egyptians don't like Gazans. They don't like Palestinians. They don't like Hamas. And they don't like a bunch of snot-nosed Western white liberals coming into their country and pretending to be tourists and then engaging in a political march. That is one of the funniest things I've seen in this year for sure. Drilling is good, but you're just not going to scale the energy generation like we need. I'm not opposed to drilling. Drilling is fine, but you're just not going to scale. If you've increased drilling 10% a year, that's not what we need. We need to double every year. Will Ford buy Tesla skateboards and rebadge with Ford? Look, even if Tesla got to that point where they had something and the other car companies were going to license it, right? Why would Tesla license them to put it on the Uber platform instead of license them to put it on the Tesla platform? Oh my God, Gary just thinks Tesla's overvalued, and he's hoping to buy Tesla stock. Who knows who knows what Barry Glack is thinking? All right, so let me ditch this. I just gotta we gotta watch this video again though. Do 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 do. Welcome to Thailand, not Thailand, Thailand, the Kingdom of Thailand. Oh, we're doing a wheelie. That's just hilarious. So we need Cybertruck in Thailand. Elon, give me Cybertruck. I want to buy a Cybertruck. Toyota's FSD package. Tesla brand is tainted. Tainted by what? Really try to bring Gary on the show. Gary blocked me like the fourth time, and I think this one's gonna stick. So I have no interest in having Gary. I tried to get Gary to come on, or I tried to have conversations with Gary in the past, and he can't have a. So everybody else who interviews Gary is soft, and when if I got on Gary, it wouldn't go well. He wouldn't be happy with that. So all right, we're 42 minutes in. I'm gonna look at the chat. I don't think I have more. I should like do this. Just again, reminder. This is my new Model Y, and it's now named Outside the Simulation. That is a reference to Elon Musk's interview with with. Oh my God, I'm so bad. The nerdy guy. I love this guy. Lost gerbil. Lex Friedman. He was on Lex Friedman. Friedman asked him, if you had a chance to talk to the supreme being, the God, the creator ever, what would you ask? And he said he thought 15 seconds. He's just like, he says, what's outside the simulation? So outside the simulation. And by the way, this isn't for sale anymore, but I cheat on my diet. I don't cheat on my women. One of my favorite shirts. I cheat on my diet. I don't cheat on my women. Plural. When I made the shirt, I didn't have any women. When do I think more affordable models will be introduced? Great question. I think that they're going to start manufacturing the more affordable models within a month. You know, they were saying by the end of first half of the year, they may be in the process of starting manufacturing of them now. There was a delay. There was like a week or two where they weren't manufacturing in Texas, so they may be starting to manufacture them. But my hunch is it's been pushed to Q3. When Lars was interviewed by either Monroe or Jay Leno, he said summer. He didn't say Q2. He said summer. So summer would be, I don't know, by mid-September. Did Tesla in Thailand reach out to you about how to improve sales, etc.? No, they don't care what we think. And what I'm hoping for is smaller version of this. This is just this is 2,100 liters of cargo space. Put that in cubic feet. I don't know, whatever it is. And the Atto 3, BYD Atto 3, which is a very hot selling EV, one of the best selling cars in the world, besides, of course, the best selling car in the world, has 1,300 liters of cargo space. It's a significantly smaller EV. And then there's the BYD C line, which is closer in size to the Model Y. But I think a Tesla came in with like 1,500 liters of cargo space. So smaller than this significantly, but still bigger than the Atto 3. And they dropped the price. So I don't know, what is it, like $45,000 now? If they came in at 35 grand in the US, it's starts around 1.7 million baht here, 1.6 million baht here. If you're able to get it to like 1.3 million baht or 1.2 million baht, that would be pretty competitive. And I will probably buy one for my wife, although she wants a Model 3 Performance now. She's driven this; she can't go back to the Honda. Of course, I have full wife driving, so she drives as much as she wants. The Robotaxi rollout could eventually be big for the stock. If the Robotaxi rollout goes anywhere near well, at some point, the big investors have to start doing the math. And when you realize that, long term, like the cost per mile isn't going to be 30 cents a mile right away because there's other costs that go in and you're not scaled yet. But you can see long term, this is obviously a 30 cents a mile cost and everybody else is, $2 a mile. Hope it'll be smaller versions, not just models. Yeah, no, it's not going to be the same thing. You never know, but I don't think they're just going to make the same car cheaper. I don't think they're just cheaper versions of existing cars. I think we're going to see a smaller Model Y and a smaller Model 3, basically. Like significantly smaller. Honda Fit size, no, not Honda. They won't be that small. Honda Fit's a very small car. I don't see it being that small. You need enough size to be able to have the batteries you need, especially in lithium iron phosphate, which is a lower cost battery in Asia. You need a certain amount of width and length to be able to squeeze the batteries in to get enough range. Color me visionless, but I still think they come out with a purchasable Robotaxi with a steering wheel. I don't think so. What do I think of Nvidia and Pal? Because nobody wants it to. The demand for 2-seat cars is extremely small. You'd have to throw a second row in there, and then it's not the Cybercab anymore. What do we think of Nvidia and Palantir stocks these days? Many people say those are good investments too. Well, this is the thing. I think Nvidia is a good investment, but I can't run the numbers. I don't know what the demand is. I don't know what the competition is going to. Like when we talk about Tesla, I don't see the competition there. Are we sure there isn't competition for Nvidia that's in 5 years that's meaningful? And what does that do to their margins? But then again, maybe demand is so high it doesn't matter. I don't really have a good feel for that. Palantir, I've never. I think Palantir is a good company. I like the guy who runs it. Tom Nash is a big believer in Palantir. The stock has done really well, but I've never understood the growth story. With Tesla, I can explain to you the growth story. I've asked people who believe in Palantir, explain the growth story to me. Nobody's ever been able to explain the growth story. NVIDIA's growth story, I understand. I just don't know if the margins remain if AMD catches up, if Tesla Dojo catches up, is somebody else going to catch up? I'm not sure how big their moats are. I'm not saying they don't have them. I'm not saying it's not there. It's just like I don't have the same feel for that I have for Robotaxi and Optimus. Those people are small. Well, look, there's like I weigh 100 kilograms. There's lots of people here I know who weigh less than 50 kilograms. Women, men are like 60 kilograms. They're like 60% of my size. So what do you expect? Thank you, Mark. Yeah, please like this video, share, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. I'm gonna try to do this every week at around this time. I'm not promising anything, but I'm now sort of settled. We're gonna move in about a month or a month and a half, but basically settled. So it's pretty straightforward for me to make these videos at this time every Sunday. I think this is a good habit to get back into. When my Honda turns into a pile of rust and it will, I will buy a Tesla or just use Tesla Cybercab. Yeah, by that point, you'll just be using Cybercab. You'll just be using Robotaxi. Invest whoever ran. I didn't see the military parade. With the equipment from CATL that Tesla acquired and the scalability of 4680, batteries is going to be a major moat for Tesla. The refinery is ramping. I don't know if I would call that a moat. It's just a cost advantage. It's not the end of the world. Is the air consistently clean in your new location? Are you happier there without the big city excitement of Bangkok? Great question, Dallas. So, for those who don't know, I moved from Bangkok, Thailand to Krabi, Thailand. I'm still a legal resident of Florida, but I'm a nomad in Asia for about 2 years. I do hope to be back in the U.S. in October for a little while. But we were in Bangkok for over a year. We had a 1-year lease, and then but we bounced around a few other places before that. Bangkok has pretty bad air pollution about 4 months a year from roughly December to March, maybe December to May, April, whatever. And it's a combination of, it's primarily from agricultural burns in dry season. So there's no rain to take the agricultural smoke out of the air. And if you go far enough south in Thailand and the dividing line is somewhere north of a city called Chumpon, which I also like, you get out of the agricultural pollution cloud. That's not to say that there's never a bad air day here in Krabi, Krabi, or Phuket, which is nearby, Phuket. It's not to say that there's never a bad air day, but the air in general here is better. Very, very clean air. And then Bangkok is a great city. We really did like living in Bangkok for a lot of reasons. I think that we have enough here. There's definitely more in Bangkok. If you want big city excitement, Bangkok is one of the great cities of the world. And for most people, I don't think the air pollution matters. If you're going to be there for 20 years, if you have any sensitivity at all to air quality, you have asthma or something like that, then it's going to matter. For me, it's hoping to have children. And do I want my children to breathe clean air for the first 20 years of their life? I don't want them to breathe dirty air for the first 20 years of their life. I'm going for clean air. So I wouldn't say the air is consistently clean, but it's almost always clean. I've definitely seen a day or two when the air wasn't good, but yeah, it's pretty fantastic. And then Bangkok doesn't have nature. It's like there's a river, but there's no river walks, and there's no ocean because the ocean's not quite to Bangkok, and there's no mountains and there's no forests. It's just one big concrete jungle for like ever. And Krabi is like green everywhere, mountains, beaches. We were at the beach this morning. Um, yeah, we were on the beach this morning, and then you just driving down the road, and there's these spectacular mountains everywhere. Not super tall, but they're like they just shot up out of the ground, cliffs of insanity. Look, the food delivery via Robotaxi is gonna be enormous. Every kind of delivery by a cybercab is gonna be enormous. I think Tesla will just provide same thing as Uber Eats, Grab Food. What do I think of the Zeekr EV model? Zeekr is a Chinese EV brand. They're pretty cool looking. I haven't driven a Zeekr. I think first of all, there's some great Chinese EVs. Their luxury seven passenger minivans, 3-row 7-passenger minivans are very, very nice. Um, Fundamentally, as a driver, I think the driving experience isn't the same as Tesla. The software isn't the same quality as Tesla. The charging experience isn't the same, but they're less expensive generally, and they're pretty nice. They look pretty cool. Do I use Grab? Yes, I use Grab more in Bangkok. Now we have 2 cars here, so we don't really have a reason to use Grab, but I used Grab a lot in Bangkok, and we still use Grab Food. Grab Food is the equivalent of Uber Eats. We use Grab Food occasionally just to get some food delivered. How many Optimus bots working in Tesla factories? I think it's very small right now, but it'll be hundreds by the end of the year. Absence of wokeness in Thailand. I don't know if I would go that there's an absence of wokeness in Thailand. There were pride celebrations. There's a huge gay population, lesbian population. There's a whole lesbian subculture. There's the ladyboy culture and everything. But I think the ladyboys know that they're ladyboys. They don't pretend. They don't insist that you call them by their preferred pronouns. There's no pronoun crap going on. There was an anti-Israel protest today in Bangkok, and they stayed on a sidewalk. They didn't block traffic. They didn't harass people. They just got together one place and they had a protest. I mean, I don't agree with their point, but at least they behaved appropriately. In Thailand, they're not allowed to block traffic. and it was like all Europeans. There's almost no Thai people in the protest. It was hilarious. You ever have to wear masks because of the air quality? On a bad day in Bangkok, I would recommend wearing a mask. Yeah. Definitely. And I have an air purifier in this room, and I have an air purifier running downstairs. Even though the air quality here is good, I still run air purifiers because I just think it's, the cost of running the air purifier. I already have the air purifiers from Bangkok, and the cost of running them is almost zero. So why not run them and get a little better air quality? But yes, we do have masks. I never wear a mask here because of the air quality, but I did wear them in Bangkok occasionally. Not very often, but I probably should have worn them more. Would having Giga Mexico today be a benefit, or was it the right choice to not build it? I think with Trump's tariffs, it was the right choice to not build it. And then I think some things happened that made it not viable within Mexico that we don't understand. Hi-Fi X is a nice looking SUV with a good take on gull wing doors. I don't know what Hi-Fi X is. There's I think it's Aeon. There's a Chinese EV that has the doors, but they're not Falcon Wing. And I think that brand is about to go bankrupt. I might have the wrong brand, but one of the brands is like right on the edge of bankruptcy and having all kinds of problems. Are the consequences more severe there for blocking traffic? I think if a foreigner blocks traffic, they're screwed. It's like you're going to be. You think that they're not going to hesitate to deport somebody who behaves badly, and that's the comical thing is all these protesters, they behaved. Why did they behave? Because they know if you misbehave in another country, they're going to like what's happening to these protesters in Egypt right now. They get the crap beat out of them, right? The protesters here figured out we can't do that, so they didn't do it. I mean, first of all, traffic can be really awkward. Krabi, by the way, much better traffic than Bangkok. Bangkok has awful traffic. Krabi, where we live, a bad day in traffic is like fantastic compared to Bangkok. Yeah, I think that the production capacity of Giga Texas and Giga Shanghai and Giga Berlin, if they start producing Cybercab and Giga, they're going to produce enough vehicles there that it's not going to be a problem. And then it's really like nailing the manufacturing of Cybercab, and then it'll be easy to open up another factory because they've said before Cybercab is going to be much more utilitarian, much easier to manufacture. The ramping of Cybercab will be a year instead of 18 months. They've said that. So, all right, we're approaching an hour. I think this is a good time to wrap it up. I think, let's see, how many robotaxis will service the world? Okay, let me just address this question because it's a great question. How many robotaxis will service the world in terms of unit volume? 20 million, 30 million, 100 million. I've heard it should only take 1,000 in most metro areas. Let's put it this way. There are about 2 billion cars in the world. Each robotaxi replaces 5 cars. That's room for 400 million robotaxis. I think that's overly optimistic, especially short to medium term. And then that assumes that people don't take more trips. So if the robotaxis drive down the cost of rides and they increase the convenience of rides, people take more trips. And then you need more robotaxis. So I certainly think 100 million is insufficient to meet all the demand that there will be. Now, the price point of a robotaxi ride will fall as the volume of robotaxis increases. So when you get to 100 million robotaxis, you're not charging $1.50 a mile anymore. You're probably at like 50 cents to 75 cents a mile. Yeah, BYD is looking struggling. I don't know enough details. So, all right, this is a good time to wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank my wife for putting up. She's over there putting up with me live streaming from the bedroom. It's approaching 10 p.m. at night, and we go to sleep soon. So, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks everybody for watching. If you want to buy a Tesla, I think my referral code is in the description below, and the YouTube notification did not mention you are live. I don't know about that. Sorry about that. But I'm going to try to do this every week at the same time going forward. We'll see how I do. OnlyFans time. I'm not going to start up an OnlyFans. I appreciate the suggestion. Y'all have a good night.